any type of public expression in our Christian nations from other religions.
Whoa. I thought this was a free speech rally.
And Islam is the most dangerous thing for our society ever.
There was a very big march that took place in London yesterday, the implications of which are gigantic.
This is religious wars. Ban any type of public expression in our Christian nations from other religions.
In this video, I will be summarizing a lot of what has happened and what you need to know by going through a lot of footage so you don't have to.
And that is a Muslim faith, that is an Islam extremist religion.
That's why I highly recommend that not only do you watch it, but you share it with your friends and family so you are aware of what is going on in your country.
Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die.
Assalamu alaikum guys, and welcome to another episode of Smile to Jannah. Your support on Patreon keeps these videos alive, spreading the truth about Islam and correcting false narratives at a time where it's most needed. Click the link below to show your support. So ladies and gentlemen, a march took place yesterday in London. The official figures are going to about 110,000 to about 140,000, but the event organizers claimed that the people that came were in their millions. The mainstream media, as well as a lot of people, are claiming that they're just far right people, you know what I mean, they're just extremists. However, that's not entirely true.
You know what really surprised me was the sheer volume of young people attending this event.
They're wrong, this is not far right. We've got women here, children here, grandparents, like I said earlier, all colours, races and creeds. Everybody's here standing up for the United Kingdom. Everybody's united together.
As you can tell from the reporting of GB News, a lot of these people were regular British people with legitimate concerns. So to label all of them as far right, I not only think it's inaccurate, but I think it's a bit naive. No problem. We'll grant you the fact that there were hundreds and thousands. Like GB News says. What makes this even more concerning is that regular people claim to have gone there as a means of...
Yes, many people pointed to their patriotism as their reason for being there, and a sense that free speech is under attack.
And their excuses: the Labour Party doesn't represent their views, the Conservative Party does not represent their views, the New Reform, Nigel Farage's party, for some people it does, for some people it doesn't. Therefore, there is a new party called Advance UK, led by Ben Habib, of which Tommy Robinson is also a member, even though technically speaking they are currently unregistered.
The next gentleman who's coming up now, in the not so distant future, I do believe we'll be standing in there. Next up, play the video.
There can be no greater happiness to secure their own futures and secure the futures of their loved ones.
Average people think, you know what, they want to pop their flags, no problem. They just wanted to go there, do their thing, you know what I mean? But it's this that I think it's even more concerning.
Ban halal, ban burqas, ban mosques, ban temples. Here's the Islamic terrorist flag. In the name of Jesus, I bind you up, you terrorist organisation!
50,000 British Muslims downloaded a terrorist manual in our country.
We are both subject to the same process of the great replacement of our European peoples by peoples coming from the South and of Muslim culture.
And Islam is the most dangerous thing for our society ever. And that is a Muslim faith, that is an Islam extremist religion. Islam is our real enemy. We have to get rid of Islam. Islam doesn't belong to Europe.
These top tier, and I'm talking about the top tier political positions, they shouldn't have any Muslim mayors. They shouldn't have any,
So you either fight for this nation or you let all of these rapist Muslims and corrupt politicians take over.
This was the extremist rhetoric that was on display and live streamed as well. This is what was allowed to be said in front of children, in front, like they're admitting, they're women, they're elderly. Why is this okay?
If 100,000 people gathered for a march in London and instead of saying the words Muslim or Islam and they said the words Jew, Jewish and Judaism instead, and they said what they said yesterday, would that be allowed? I just want to know, can somebody clarify this for me? Would that be allowed? Maybe a journalist could ask Keir Starmer or the government or the police maybe. Is that allowed?
The amount of anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim sentiment that was allowed to be said with zero consequences, it's actually disturbing and very worrying. As you may have heard by now, this is the biggest right-wing / far-right march that we have seen. They are now, the far right, are melding themselves in the right-wing pot, because you've even got far-right sentiments from the conservatives. If the conservatives are becoming far-right, the whole pot becomes just right-wing.
There is no other religions. There's only Jesus Christ and then all the rest.
There's no other religion. Only Jesus Christ's religion. What about Judaism? Because you literally were just quoting the Old Testament. But the Jews don't accept Jesus. So you're in a bit of a predicament here, mate.
We've got to get everything out that does not know or receive Jesus Christ. Ban any type of public expression in our Christian nations from other religions.
Whoa. Ban any type of expression other than Christianity. I thought this was a free speech rally. I thought these people were frustrated that their free speech was being curtailed. They're just calling for the exact same thing. Look. So they want to ban everything. They want all the religions out. They only want Christianity. Doesn't this go against the whole premise of what they're marching about? This is what I just don't get. And this comes on the back of a couple of days ago, a Sikh woman was raped. Yes, by two white British people. And it was quoted that they'd said something along the lines of, this country is not yours, go back to your country, something along these lines. The Sikh community is very worried, especially on the back of certain figureheads from the Sikh community being propped up by the far right. This guy called Harmin and Bobby and whoever it is, there's a few prominent Sikh people that are behind the far right. And it's very interesting, because they haven't said anything, to my knowledge, about this Sikh woman that's been raped. And the Sikhs are now having to come out and be a bit more emboldened and draw this line between themselves and the far right, because the far right are trying to weaponize them as well. On the march, we saw these guys, as you can see them, chanting Allah, Allah, who the F is Allah? Now, is this okay? Well, firstly, if I was to just respond, I'd say Allah is my God and your God. Well, firstly, if you open up your Arabic Bible, for God it says the word Allah. Secondly, if you check the native language of Jesus, which is Aramaic, go to the dictionary, type in God, you will see the translation is Allah. So Jesus called God Allah. So these guys are so stupid. They don't even realize that with their hatred, they are insulting their own religion as well. Secondly, the event was started off by 3 reverends. Yes, they're like 3 Christian imams. I don't know how you can sanction something like this, frankly.
We stand before you this day in fear.
Lol.
Not in fear.
And again, I don't want to show this footage, but on the live streamed footage, the camera showed the audience. There were a lot of women, elderly, children. Children there looking at the camera and waving, while such vitriolic, hateful, xenophobic rhetoric was being said. A woman who had burnt the Quran, Valentina Gomez from Colombia, she was invited to speak, and she was talking about fighting Islam and this and that, as you guys saw in the highlight reel. Then we had a guy called Brian Tamaki, who was talking about the guy from New Zealand, yes, who was ripping the Islamic flag, according to him, calling to a religious war, ladies and gentlemen.
This is religious wars.
Yes, on the streets of London. Religious war. Firstly, how were these extremists allowed to come into the country? Secondly, Tommy Robinson said 2 days before Westminster Council wanted to cancel the event, the police said, no problem, we'll let it go ahead. And he was praising the police, even though these guys were throwing their traffic cones. Well, they were trying to hit the police, but they couldn't even manage that. Look at this poor guy get smacked on the head by his own guy. A day before, when there was a vigil for Charlie Kirk, a guy is literally saying everyone should be radicalized.
Be under no illusion, meek and mild, turn the other cheek is over. Each and every one of you should be radicalized by what has happened.
And you also heard a Belgian politician called Philip de Winter saying, get rid of Islam. Islam doesn't belong. Now, irony was a lot of people were sharing footage that before they even started the march, a lot of these patriots were stopping at these Indian stalls, getting a pakora. Yes, because an onion bhaji is a pakora, you know what I mean? And after having their pakora or onion bhaji, you can see this guy calling for the assassination of Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer needs to be assassinated, yeah? Someone needs to shoot. Someone needs to shoot Keir Starmer.
But ladies and gentlemen, I thought this was representative of the British people. I thought the people that were there were very peaceful. Are you now going to tell me that this anti-Islamic sentiment, literally labeling the entire Muslim population with one brush, is something indicative of the mainstream British position? I don't think you would agree with that. Not only that, we saw people ripping up the Palestinian flag. However, on the other hand, we saw people fly the Israeli flag. So on the one hand, you're saying, yeah, we're putting Britain first. UK, England comes first, mate. But then on the other hand, you're holding up the flags of another country. The hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen, is palpable. So for the people that are watching, especially the Muslims, first thing that we need to do is not to underplay, ignore or trivialize what happened yesterday. It was and is indicative of where the UK is heading to next. Number 2, uneducation of our people is no longer an option. Why? Because people that are uneducated can't defend their religion, not just going to these grammar schools, getting a big job, not knowing their religion and living in their big houses until death overcomes them. No, people that will get educated and receive Islamic education and benefit the Muslims at large. Why? Because we are being watched. If you are an uneducated cultural Muslim doing some dopey thing, it's going to affect us all. Why? Because our actions are not only being watched, they're filmed, they get uploaded, and the whole community gets brushed with that.
And these people are being constantly brainwashed every single day on social media. Why? Because I follow these people. I follow them around and see what they are consuming every single day. They are being fed dozens and dozens of videos every single day of a non-white person committing a crime in the UK, across Europe.
I know it's unfair. I know it's unreasonable, and I know it doesn't happen with the others. However, the Islamophobia machine is heavily invested in, and there are, look at the University of Berkeley. They have studies with CAIR that about $200 million was spent on the Islamophobia machine from about 2008 to 2013. That's about 70 organizations that were funded. And lastly, the point that I wanted to highlight is, I think it ties in with the second point, is we have to practice our religion. Like from a small age, the parents now need to take more responsibility to make sure we are Islamically educated. We know our religion. Why? Because people that are uneducated and cultural, they are actually doing more damage to the religion. Because if you look at the advanced UK party, which is supposed to be an even edgier version of reform, the founder of that, the main guy of that is Ben Habib. The guy was born in Pakistan, I kid you not. His dad was a Muslim. But what on earth did he do with him? So whilst these people are complaining of migrants coming over here and messing stuff up, we would argue the same bloody thing. This Ben Habib, who's plodded along and coming here and making life more difficult for the good Muslims, that have actually contributed positively to this country. So ladies and gentlemen, the more religious we are, not the sectarian Muslims that just talk about differences all the time. No, the practical ones, the ones that follow their religion. Orthodox Muslims, however, they understand that we need to coexist and live with each other without just talking about our differences, thinking that the non-Muslims know the difference between a Brelvi, a Deobandi and a Salafi and a this and a that. No, they look at us and think we're all the same. So ladies and gentlemen, it's a good time to introspect. It's a good time to have these discussions in your circles over tea and come up with some practical things, and make sure you do not neglect your children, that they veer off the Islamic path and then end up doing a disservice to the Muslims of this country.
Islam has been part of this country for centuries. Islam is not new here, and the Muslims here are not just visitors. We're English, we're Irish, we're Scottish, and we're Welsh, born and raised here in the land of our ancestors. Islam is woven into Britain's past, present, and future.
Let's leave it there, guys. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.